Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Nat. We are going to have a little play today with a Fusion Card Challenge. So this is a stencil I've got from PaperRose called Layering Rainbow. So I've used a little bit of pixie powder on the back of my stencil. If you don't know about pixie powder, it's not something here in Australia that we can get easily, but it is great if you can find it. What it is, it provides a temporary adhesive for the back of probably anything really, but for the back of your stencils. And what I do is I just put it down on the outside of the packaging. Really, in some ways, I didn't really need it for this stencil, but I still feel like the arches of the rainbow might possibly move around a little bit too much if I wasn't going to use some pixie spray. So that's the main reason why I used it. So we've got 3 inks. They are a Stampin' Up ink, but obviously anything that is basically, the peachy sort of tones that's going into the orange, that would be good. So we've got Peekaboo. We got Peekaboo, we've got Pumpkin Pie and Tangerine Tango. So they are our 3 colours. And I'm also going to use the Pumpkin Pie ink on, like in cardstock. Okay, so we're just working our way through, making sure we've got a little bit of a blend. I will add the little inspiration picture right here, and just to let you see where I got my idea from. So clearly I'm going with the rainbow and the colouring, the tones. So I'm going to use both the sketch and the inspiration picture. What we've got here, at this point I wasn't really too sure where I was going for this. I like that, and I don't know whether I would have left it if I did this card again. I would leave that being stark white, but I wanted it a little bit softer. So we're going to do a little bit of blending through just to the white, just to soften that color a little bit, And what I'll do is I'm actually going to trim it down to just be the rainbow, but I'm jumping ahead of myself here. So Stampin' Up inks are a dye-based ink, so you do have to be careful obviously when you blend them. So I'm tapping off just before I add it onto the cardstock, just to make sure it's nice and soft. And clearly that piece of cardstock I've used, I tested the colours out. The next layer that we've got of this is just making sure that it's nice and sort of straight. We're going to use a little bit of Picket Fence Distress inks, which Picket Fence is pretty much like a pigment ink. It's pigment. But I don't want to destroy my ink pad, so what we're going to do is just, as you see, put it onto my Fiskars craft mat, silicone mat, and we're going to just pick it up from there, because some of the orange is going to be picked up by the blending tool, which is not that much, but there is a little bit basically. I'm just trying to keep layering it up and layering it up, so it's not going to be terribly it's not opaque. Okay, it's not opaque, but I'm quite happy with that. The next thing I've got is we're going to use the clouds, and we're going to make a little bit of a background. At this moment, this is actually scraps I'm using here. I'm going to trim it down to about 14.5 eventually. It gets trimmed down a couple of times, but eventually it's about 14.5 centimeters tall, and it's the width of the card base. We're going to come through again with all of our ink colors, and we're just going to move those around. And I just thought that'd be really cool, little background to make my own little pattern paper basically. So I've masked off just to make sure I don't get any weird you know, bits of a sun or bits of the hearts. We've masked that all off. I do hide a little bit of it. I use the back of that panel, the rainbow panel, yet again, and to sort of mask off the side of it, but it's not really going to matter because what you can always do is just put a darker color. So this is our next color that we're going to use, which I think is the Tangerine Tango, I think, if I remember correctly. And we're just going to layer over the top. As you can see, I'm not too fussed about any, like going over any, sponging off any other clouds. We're just going to keep layering up some clouds. And then eventually we'll come in with the pumpkin pie. Just wanted to make sure I didn't get any weird clouds or parts of clouds there. Just going to fight with my ink pad for a sec. And you can start to see. Now, I'm mostly going to use the sides. You're not going to see, no, it's not mostly. I'm only going to use the sides. But just so I don't have any weird places where it feels like it's lost, if I see part of a cloud, then it works out brilliantly. The best thing about going from lightest down to darkest is obviously you still have the lighter clouds in the background. And you're not trying to fight to bring out some of the lighter color. It just works better. It just works better. We're just going to go through and fill out any gaps now. And that's our image. Now I'm going to move on to the little raindrops. Clean off that little stencil a little bit. Just got a wet wipe, baby wipe on the side of it. What I have is some Emboss It Dabber. This is a Ranger product and it's basically going to dab it's got a dauber top on it, and we're going to dab the ink over the top of it. Now, make sure this is dry because I am going to have to use my little brush for a fair bit and swish off any extra bits because, yeah, it wasn't quite dry. But, you know, sometimes I just want to get these things not through the matter of like get it out of the way and get it done with, but I'm just got it in my mind and I'm fixated on what I'm doing, so to speak. And before you know it, I sort of go, yeah, you probably should have done that. You probably should have done that. Basically, I haven't used in the center because we're not going to need the center because we're going to hide it. And I've just used some white embossing powder with that one. So we're going to start to put our card together. This is where I'm going to trim down a little bit more down to make it the 4.5 centimeters. And roughly it's what, about 14.9 centimeters long. Well, it's going to be. I have this piece of cardstock and I just was checking whether I could be sneaky and get both of them on. So I needed to trim it down a little bit, and that's going to work out brilliantly. We just need a little tiny 15th more. How's that? It'll fit it out perfectly. So we're just going to use, I'm not measuring things here, I just basically put it on the pattern paper or whatever paper is going to be put onto the cardstock, and then I'm just going to eyeball it and trim it off. With the rainbow here, we're going to mount that all up. I'm going to put this down with glue, obviously. We're going to mount up my rainbow. Now I've just roughly cut it with some scissors. What I would suggest, and what I try to do and never seem to actually succeed in, is just trying to move the cardstock more than moving the actual scissors. It helps to give you a much more smoother cut. And you see here I do actually try and I do a bit, but basically I'm using both. I've failed miserably at trying to just use the cardstock, but it worked out fine, so it all comes out well. We've got this Stampin' Up over the rainbow. I don't know if it's still available, but this is just, these cards I like to use just everything. And so the sentiment that really fit in well, this will probably go to a friend of mine, and says, God gives us rainbows to remind us of hope. So I raised it up. I didn't raise it up. I clear embossed it with some VersaFine black onyx ink. This, I really like the rainbow, but the sentiment, rainbow sentiment. And of course, once again, if you don't know, I have a terrible habit of not stamping these things before I mount them up or glue them down. Glue them down is not so much of an issue, but when you mount them up, it's a bit of an issue if you then try and stamp it. It's a terrible habit, but a little bit of planning would do wonders, but I don't do that because everything is by the skin of my teeth. I don't know whether that's an Aussie saying or what. I mean, clearly if you analyze it, it's just totally weird. But my black glaze pen is currently in a box waiting for COVID to go the heck away. And this today is the 16th September 2021. So I have this other pen that is quite honestly jelly. It's, if you know what I mean. And with wiping it there, I smudged it. So I was like, damn it. So we're going to figure that out. We're going to work that out. And some of this totally fails. But in the long run, we win. So don't give up. That's my message in today's video. Don't give up. So I thought, let's do some, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly, some black raindroppy things. And I'm like, what the heck were you thinking? So we're going to be lucky enough that we can hide it. So we're going to put a little bit of sequins on, and honestly it fitted in perfectly in the end that we put some little sequins here and there, just fiddling with this last one because I didn't have a specific place. Thank goodness it was all worked out well, because imagine if I had some weird spot or it was too big and I totally was going to have problems, but it worked out perfectly. So that's my card. I will leave a link down below to the Fusion Card Challenge. Please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.